He lives in a big, noisy and crowded city with a busy rhythm of life. But he is interested in another world. A world with no fuss, where a person lives preserving the heritage of his ancestors and the precepts of nature. Konstantin Kuksin, an ethnographer, traveler, a current member of the Russian Geographical Society, as well as the founder and director of the Museum of Nomadic Culture in Moscow. Nomads of the Great Steppe are his favorite topic, and he can talk about it for hours.
Про кочевую цивилизацию.
About the nomadic civilization that, like a patchwork quilt, covers our planet. We will talk about all of this on the sacred land of Ulitau. Welcome to Ulitau. Konstantin Kuksin in the new season of Dala Project.
Каждому известно, что круг.
Everyone knows that a circle has no beginning. It would seem that the same applies to the wheel of time, to the wheel of history, but it doesn't. Human history had a beginning and will have an end. At least that's what all the Holy Scriptures say. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Today we will talk about the end of the great period of history, the end of the Genghis Khan's dynasty rule in the steppe, with a historian and writer, Mukhtar Bakhytuly. It is no coincidence that we came to this beautiful place. Behind our backs is a mountain that people of Ulitau revere and respect. That peak that looks like the dome of the mausoleum is the peak of Yedige, one of the faithful nukers, military comrades of Amir Timur, also known as Tamerlane. Legend says that Yedige was buried there. But let us start from the beginning. Let us talk about what led to the downfall of the greatest empire that knew no equal. How did the period that later was called the Parade of Emirs begin?
Пошатнулась и стала разваливаться. Как начался период, впоследствии получивший название в истории «Парад эмиров»?
Династийное управление джучидов, шейбанидов, потомков и Джены было произведено при Чингисхане, но оно потом начало разрушаться. Каждый
The dynastic rule of the Genghisides, descendants of Genghis Khan and Orda Agen, was strong under Genghis Khan, but later began to fall apart. Every sultan, every Chingizid tried to claim the power. The period of the White Horde can be divided into the time of prosperity, which lasted until the 14th century, and the time when the Great Toulouse started splitting up. After Joshi Khan died, the Great Toulouse, which was already declared a separate entity during the Talas gathering in 1269, began falling apart at the end of the 14th century, after Western campaigns. When Batu's headquarters was relocated to the lower reaches of the Volga River, Orda Agen became the ruler of the main Ulus. He had been in power for over 20 years. During this time, the city of Saganak became the center of the White Horde. The White Horde was a sovereign state, although many scientists say that it was an autonomous region within the Golden Horde. In fact, they were equal. The Golden Horde had more military action. It was collecting tribute, conquering and subjugating peoples, while the White Horde had a quiet life. The White Horde prospered under Khan Mubarak in 1330s, 1340s. The sources say that he started minting his own coins in Saganak. At this time, Saganak became an important administrative center, while Ulitau was used purely as summer pastures and a temporary headquarters of the Khan. The fight between the golden and white hordes intensified under Urus Khan. This was the starting point for the decline of Genghis Khan's dynasty, when Urus Khan, having fortified himself in Saganak, fought against Amir Timur. At that time, Amir Timur was wary of Urus because he had a strong army. The Samarkand troops even lost in one of the battles. Still, Amir Timur at that time already set himself the goal of subjugating the entire Great Ulus and pumping all the tribute to Samarkand, his headquarters.
Потому что армия Урус-хана была очень сильной. В одном из боев войска, самаркандские войска даже потерпели поражение. Хотя эмир Тимур уже с этого момента ставил перед собой целью подчинения всего Улук-Улуса и перекачивания этой всей дани в Самарканд.
Mukhtar, let's describe Amir Timur for our viewers. It is clear who he was, everyone knows it. He was a great conqueror and a brilliant commander. What did he want to do in the steppe? Why can he be called an ideological enemy of Genghis Khan's dynasty?
Чингизизма.
Борьба с чингизизмом восходила от мангытов, от барласов, от киатов, потому что они считались близкими родственниками.
The fight against Genghis Khan's dynasty started with the Mangit, the Barlas, and the Kiat tribes. They were considered close relatives of Genghis Khan, the descendants of his associates. They thought that it was unfair that they, being such worthy rulers, were not allowed to sit on the throne. They also had a problem with the multiplying descendants of Genghis Khan, who only showed weakness, parted, and didn't do anything with their lives. That is why Mamai of the Kiat tribe, being a ruler of the Crimea, Yedige of the Mangit tribe, reigning over the lower Volga region, Timur from the Barlas tribe, and Amir Pulachi from Jetisu area, all believed that they were more worthy. When we talk about Urus Khan, he went on a campaign trying to conquer the city of Sarai Batu. He did it, establishing unity, which meant the flow of tribute to Saganak. But he had opponents, especially Mangistau ruler Tui Kodja, who refused to take part in this campaign. Yedige supported him in this. Urus Khan executed Tui Kodja for his betrayal. His son Toktamish, along with Yedige, fled to Amir Timur. This is the moment when Timur decided to push back against the Great Ulus.
С этого момента и начинается борьба Тимура против Улук-Улуса.
Sometimes random events change the direction in which the wheel of history spins. A random arrow, a random word. The same thing happened with Toktamish. If he had not deceived Timur several times, perhaps the story would have turned out differently. After all, Timur told Toktamish, "You are like a son to me. I feel like your father. Let's be friends." Toktamish said, Yeah, sure, but then ran off into the steppe and started a war. He did it several times. Perhaps Toktamish hastened the death of the ruler of Genghis Khan's dynasty in the steppe. Is that the case?
Гибель чингизизма в степи. Так ли это?
Можем поспорить. Почему?
This is a moot point. Toktamish, being under Amir Timur's patronage, fought against Urus Khan unsuccessfully. But after Urus Khan died, Toktamish managed to claim first Saganak and then Sarai Batu. He becomes the great Khan of the Great Ulus, and of course Amir Timur expected him to transfer all the tribute from the Great Ulus, but it did not happen. On the contrary, Toktamish started spending this tribute on strengthening his own army. He wanted to rule according to old rules, according to Genghis Khan's code, which meant supporting his dynasty and to wage a fight against Amir Timur.
Тохтамыш как человек мне симпатичен.
I like Toktamish as a person. He was a brave and a generous man. But it seems to me that compared to Timur, he simply did not have enough talent to unite the great Ulus and retaliate. Toktamish hastened the death of the Ulus. He was no Genghis Khan after all, even though he dreamed of this kind of fame and recognition. And Timur was, of course, a genius, at least a military one.
По крайней мере, военный гений.
Может быть, даже он не успел.
Maybe he didn't even have the opportunity. Remember the famous battle of Kulikovo when Dmitry of the Don and the troops of Toktamish fought Mamai, a military commander who wanted to separate from the Great Ulus. The old interpretation of the Battle of Kulikovo as a fight of Russians to liberate themselves from the Horde yoke has long been discarded by historians. It is rather the participation of the Russian principalities in the largest civil war of the Great Steppe. And Dmitry of the Don, with the blessing of Sergius of Radonezh, supported the legitimate Chingizid Toktamish against the usurper Mamai. But it was the troops of Toktamish that fought in the battle. Dmitry's personal participation proves that he was not leading the troops. If we were to adhere to the Soviet interpretation of Russian principalities fighting for their freedom, then Dmitry would be sitting in headquarters, giving commands and not fight himself. The boyars had trading interests. The Muscovite state had also been gaining more and more independence at that time. Dmitry of the Don left for the city of Vladimir and wrote a message to Toktamish. 2 years later, Toktamish comes and burns Moscow while executing all the boyars. He left, and after a while Dmitry of the Don arrived from Vladimir and started restoring Moscow. Russian historiography interprets Toktamish's capture of Moscow in different ways. The most common version says, this idiot Toktamish, he had help in dealing with Mamai, yet he burned Moscow. What is strange is that none of the Muscovite princes or princesses, none of the Battle of Kulikovo heroes were present in the city.
И вот это привело к усилению с 1382 года Тохтамыша и к объединению великого Улуса.
This led to the strengthening of Toktamish from 1382 and to the unification of the Great Ulus. Toktamish ignored Amir Timur's repeated appeals. On top of this, Toktamish organized an attack on the Iranian city of Tabriz, which Amir Timur wanted to claim as his. That was the beginning of hostilities. In 1391, Amir Timur launched his famous campaign, the route of which is described in the work of Sharaf al-Din Ali Yazdi. He writes that Timur departed from Samarkand, passed through the cities along the Sirdarya river bank, subjugating them. Then he went along the Sarisu river, reached Ulik Bakırlık and stopped in what is known today as the Altyn Shoki area. This hill is visible from everywhere. We can see it even from here. It is located in an open space. The wind can roam freely there. There are no barriers for it. This is also a very convenient space for the deployment of troops. This place was necessary to prepare for the next important step, to cross the Turgay Plateau to reach Saray Batu. Amir Timur had a big problem crossing the Sarisu River, because the mountain rivers flow into the Sarisu River and it carries huge amounts of water from about April the 5th to April the 15th.
Сарысу, и она с грохотом несет огромные кубометры воды именно примерно с 5 апреля и продолжается до 15-20 апреля.
Timur preferred to take a risk and cross the river rather than let the entire army and horses perish in the desert that this land was turning into. Let's spin the wheel of history again, move back centuries and imagine Timur and his army at the foot of the mountain.
Mukhtar, расскажите немножко...
Mukhtar, tell us a little about Timur's stone, a copy of which is now at the foot of this mountain.
Этот камень искали еще испокон веков. В одном из источников этот камень назывался камень Срединной земли.
People have been searching for this stone since ancient times. One of the sources called it the stone of the Middle Earth. And it was mentioned that whoever owns the stone of the Middle Earth, his rule will spread both to the west and to the east. This is the stone of power. Stalin was also interested in this stone, because when the news came from Karsakbai village that Kanish Satpayev's geological party found the stone, director of the Hermitage Museum, Joseph Orbeli, sent a person to take the stone to the Hermitage. It is still on display in the Hermitage as one of the most valuable exhibits.
Отвезти этот камень в Эрмитаж. И он сейчас находится в экспозиции в Эрмитаже как один из ценнейших экспонатов.
Академик Сатпаев поднялся на сук.
Satpayev climbed the Altanshokha hill and saw the stone. He was even able to read the first 3 lines of the inscription, because they were written in Arabic and were a traditional prayer to Allah. And the next 7 lines of the inscription were written in the Chagatai language, which he could not read. But he immediately realized the significance of this discovery, which is why he published a small article. The very next year, specialists from the Hermitage arrived and took away the stone.
Приехали специалисты из Эрмитажа, которые увезли камень.
In the name of the merciful Allah, master of all things, sanctuary of truth, vigilant protector, omnipotent and almighty, wise giver of life and death. In the year of 793, the year of the sheep, in the middle of spring, the Sultan of Turan, Timur, with 300,000 strong troops, waged a war against the Bulgar Khan Toktamesh. Having reached this area, Timur erected this mound so that there would be a memorial sign. God willing, may the Lord do justice. May the Lord have mercy on the people of the country. May they remember us in prayers.
Кстати, Mukhtar.
Mukhtar, why make such a huge fire? We've seen the mountain peaks where the wind always blows and the stones are melted.
На основе современных
Modern technologies, the radiocarbon analysis helped to determine that there were no traces of iron smelting. Emma Usmanova's research has finally put an end to it.
исследование Эммы Усмановой поставило наконец-то точку.
Когда мы сделали анализ шлака и сделали эксперимент по отношению базальтовой породы, из которой состоит курган, каменной породы, то выяснено.
When we did an analysis of the slag and conducted an experiment of the basalt rock that makes up the mound, we found that the slag does not contain metal in the amount that could be obtained during smelting. And in the second experiment, when we melted the rock, it took the shape of the slag. We had a problem. We needed to prove that this correlates with the date of Timur's campaign against Tokhtamesh. And the date does coincide with the date of Timur's campaign. The difference is very small. So we were able to definitively prove that the mound was built as a heat engineering facility by Timur's soldiers on his orders. Amir Timur went against the representative of royalty, so to speak, against the dynasty of Genghis Khan, which he respected very much. He dreamed of repeating Genghis Khan's feat, acquiring a similar glory. So he holds a ritual associated with the worship of fire. He was born in the city of Shahrisab, Kesh, which was a home to one of the largest Zoroastrian communities. This worship of fire is likely something he learned as a child. It's like a detective. We follow in his footsteps. This was not only a military campaign. This was the only religious structure Amir Timur built during the campaigns. And trust me, he had been in a lot of places during his conquests, like Egypt, Syria, and the Caucasus. This, however, was the eastern province of Josh's Ulus, so he did the ritual. He did not perform this ritual anywhere else. This is, of course, the worship of the ancestral mountain of the Genghisides. Iranian sources, which were documenting this in later periods, did not include a description of this rite, which is understandable because his son Shahrukh erased the memory of his father as a pagan.
Конечно, это поклонение родовой горе Чингизидов. В иранских источниках, которые писались позднее несколько, мы не встречаем описание этого обряда. И это понятно, потому что его сын Шахрук, он убрал языческую память отца.
Well, looks like the Sufi fire helped Timur, even taking into account his unconditional talent as a commander and military leader. He still hoped for the help from higher powers as a religious man, and he was able to defeat the troops of Toktamish. What happened next to the Great Ulus?
Что было дальше с Великим Улусом?
Кадыргали Жалаири очень подробно расписывает последние дни Тохтамыша. Эмир Тимур отправил одного из...
Kadir Gali Jalairi describes in great detail the last days of Toktamish. Amir Timur sent one of his military commanders to capture him. Toktamish was killed on the coast of the Yesil River. He parted ways with Yedige by that time because he constantly reminded Toktamish about the role of Amir Timur, about his contribution to the capture of the Golden Horde throne. And after the defeat of Toktamish, Yedige became the sole ruler of the Golden Horde, but unofficially. In fact, he put on the throne the Khans that he preferred. This is how the Nogai horde was established. It was named after Nogai, one of the commanders of Berke Khan, who, by the way, led successful military campaigns against Hulagu, for example. The Nogai horde was also called the Manget Yurt. The people living in the southern foothills of the Ulutau Mountains used to call it Taiget Ken. That place has a spring called Yedigenin Mainli Kone. That is, the blessed overnight stay or the camp of Amir Yedige. This suggests that he often visited here. Commemorative plates were erected on this mountain behind us in honor of Toktamish and Yedige.
Имеет непосредственно отношение к этим местам. И вот эта гора, которая находится за нами, там были установлены даже памятные плиты, мемориальные плиты, установленные в честь Тохтамыша и Едыге.
Газиз, Едыге и Токтамыш...
Ghazi's, Yedige and Toktamish were ideological enemies. Toktamish was the paladin of the steppe, while Yedige was the faithful comrade of Timur. Toktamish constantly fought Timur, starting disastrous for the steppe dwellers' wars over and over again. Why are the two enemies buried together?
Енді мен тарихшылардан сұраған уақытта Едігенің өлген жері.
When I asked historians about the dates of death of both Yedige and Toktamish, I learned that they did not match. That is, according to historians, they are buried in different places. But in our minds, they are still together on the same mountain top. Does it matter if Yedige was buried there or not? If Toktamish was buried there or not? It does not. It's not even worth asking this question. What matters is that two people who were at war with each other at the end of their journey found peace in one place. This is symbolic, as if the two irreconcilable enemies who rest on the top of the mountain tell the people to be united. They should find a common ground and be in agreement. No good will come from enmity and wars. This is sort of a myth that people created.
Халықтың арманы осындай оқиғаны әңгімеге өзек қылып отыр.
Вот еще один удивительный поворот колеса истории.
This is another amazing turn of events, turn of the wheel of history. Two enemies, two ideological opponents, one of which basically caused the death of the other, rest side by side on the top of this sacred mountain. This is probably a good thing because death levels everything. And the fact that they lie side by side, the two enemies, is good. When the locals told me this legend, they hinted that it was good, that there are no political intrigues and struggle after death. The Lord will judge people for other deeds. This is why this mountain is revered by the local population. You can even say that the mountain, which became the grave of two enemies, is a symbol of peace in the steppe.
Гора – символ мира в степи.